Welcome in everyone to a brand new episode of Catfish on Ice with your hosts Chad Minton and Max Greenberg. It's episode 241 of Catfish on Ice, bringing you all the intense Nashville Predators talk. We're gearing you up for a regular season that's still a little less than 2 months away. We're inching closer and closer, but it still feels so far away, Max, so far away.
No, it's honestly kind of quick to believe it's been that long. It's been 5 weeks since free agency happened, one of the most historic days this team has ever had. But it's inching closer. Training camp's a little over a month away, but no, we're ready to get things going. And of course, we got more things to talk about tonight.
And I think the anticipation of this season is just at a maximum right now because of what they've done in free agency. I think that the most diehard Preds fans right now are just trying to just calm their nerves because of what this team has done this offseason. They've upped the ante. They've raised the stakes. We're going to talk about it a little bit later in some of my bold predictions that I put out there, but let's just call it like this. The honeymoon phase is over. I felt like last season was a little bit of a honeymoon phase. I mean, there's always going to be those fans out there that are always upset and they're always mad and they expect everything to go perfectly all the time. But for the most part, last season was a honeymoon phase. It was the first year under Andrew Burnett. It was the first year as Barry Trotz the GM. You made a couple signings with Ryan O'Reilly and whatnot, but the expectations were pretty tempered. You multiply that by 100. Going into this current season. The honeymoon phase is over.
I mean, there could still be maybe a little at the beginning of the year with all the excitement of the new guys coming in, and especially if things start out well, people can be like in that euphoria kind of mode thinking, oh, this is amazing and stuff. But no, I agree. It's going to go pretty quickly. And, once you get to like January or something, it's going to, we're going to know what this team is, going into October. You still don't have a ton of film on the new team's going to look like, with obviously Stamkos, Marchessault, and Shea on this team. This team is definitely different from where they ended back in early May of this past year. But yeah, no, like you're definitely right though. Expectations are absolutely through the roof right now, and yeah, no, it's going to be down to business. But the one area where you said, well, I will say the honeymoon phase is over, is Barry Trotz and Andrew Burnett no longer have that excuse of, oh, it's our first year, like an audition year. No, they know what they want this team to be now, and anything less than that's going to be a failure.
Yep, sure is. Good stuff there. So let's tell you what we're getting into. Thank you. We are brought to you by BetterHelp. Tell you more about our amazing sponsor, BetterHelp. I mean, no one has to really dig too deep to realize that in this crazy world we're living in right now with all of the just insane things that are happening in this world, therapy is very important, and your mental health is very important. So we cannot be excited enough about BetterHelp being a new sponsor of the podcast. We're going to tell you more about this amazing sponsor later in this episode. And also, of course, we are also presented by DraftKings. We have promo codes THPN for both of those amazing sponsors. We're going to tell you about both of them later. We are also part of the Hockey Podcast Network. Amazing hockey podcasts all over our network covering so many different teams. So check out the network as well. So some fun stuff to get into tonight on Catfish on Ice episode 241. We are going to do the opening face-off tonight. It's going to be the top 10 bold offseason predictions. This was something that these are my predictions, and Max is going to critique them. That's how we're going to do the opening face-off. He's maybe already seen them because I put them out there with my written word, as you will, on Pred lines. But in podcast form, it can sometimes comes out very differently than how it comes out in the written word. So that's what we're going to do there. But put it on my bold. You call them bold for a reason, Max. You don't just make.
I gotta say, I read them. I agree honestly with a lot of them.
But they're bold predictions. You don't make conservative predictions. They're called bold predictions for a reason. So I can't wait to see how many of them I get right. When they're bold predictions, you might bat 300. But, hey, batting 300, 3 out of 10, that's good in baseball. So we'll see. But we'll get into that. Also, saw a post from NHL.com praising the Preds captains over the years. The Preds have had 7 captains over their franchise history. Of course, the incumbent, Roman Josi, has been the captain for now 7 seasons, going into his 8th season. Really kind of crazy when you think about it. Time flies by that he has been captain for that long.
Yeah, that really is insane.
So I'm gonna.
You started in 2017-18. Yeah, this will be the 8th year that he's been a captain.
He took over the captainship of the President's Trophy season. He's a well-deserving captain. He carries himself in such a great leadership way. It's not just of course, what he does on the ice is just incredible in and of itself. But it's also not just about what you do on the ice. It's about how you lead your team. And I think Roman Josi is. We're going to rank our captains. I got my list. Max doesn't know my list. And Max also isn't a history buff when it comes to Preds captains, so maybe he had a little trouble.
Be a factor here,
but it's okay. It's okay. We'll see. We'll rank our 7 Preds captains. We'll do that later in the episode. We're also going to talk about the players facing the most individual pressure going into this season. Quite frankly, this team as an entire whole is facing a lot of pressure because the microscope is on them right now, rightfully so. But just individual players that are facing the most pressure for different reasons. You can say these different players have much different reasons for why they're facing the pressure they're facing. We're going to talk about that. We're going to do a little fun game. We're going to do the What's Your Number game. I used to play that game in a much different way in my college years, asking for girls' phone numbers. This is a little bit different. Hopefully I'm a way better at this game than I was back then. But yeah, What's Your Number? I'm gonna ask Max some easier players that maybe he remembers the number of these Preds players. Maybe go back in the vault, and he's probably going to struggle with those.
I was expecting you to make it a little hard on me.
I have photogenic memory, so I feel like I'm pretty good at this game because for some reason I will remember the most random numbers for players. But we're going to do that. That'll be fun. And then we got to do Titans talk because a lot is happening right now in Titans country. The preseason's about to start. Apparently the Titans just signed another quality player. Tell us about it later. And from what I hear, Titans training camp has been gladiator style. Just the intensity has been insane. So I can't wait to get your thoughts on that. I can't wait. So that's going to round out episode 241. So we have a full table set for you, even though we are in the desert of the off season. There's not a lot going on out there.
Right.
But we do have a little current Preds news to cover as well with Cody Glass and our 2 restricted free agents that still aren't signed, Juuso Parssinen and Philip Tomasino. We're going to do that as well. So, hey, we got a lot to cover.
Yep.
Thank you if you're watching live on YouTube or if you end up watching this video on YouTube later. Thank you so much. If you're not subscribed, please hit subscribe below. It helps a ton. Hit the like button. Throw us a comment on all these topics and what you think. We love to hear from you, and we're also on Facebook. Hit like. You can hit follow. And we will eventually be streaming on X again as the season starts, but we are not premium, unfortunately, yet, but we'll get there. All right, so Max, let's get into it here. Let's get into before I do that, let's start the episode with some very inspirational stuff here. So the Olympics are going on, and I want to put this on the screen for everyone to see. I came across this. It's really cool. So the Olympics, Team USA is doing awesome in the Olympics as they usually do. I think they're leading the total medal count right now. And they're right there with China in terms of gold medal count. But I want to share this. So this is a track and field competitor for Team USA that I have never heard of, but quickly is becoming one of my favorite Olympic athlete right now. So I'm going to put this on the screen for our viewers. I'll read the message that this athlete shared. But so this is Noah Lyles, track and field.
Race yesterday.
So I'm going to read this. So this guy has already won gold medal. He won his first gold medal. And so ESPN shared this tweet. But this is what Noah Lyles, who's racing for Team USA here in the Olympics, he said in his tweet, "I have asthma, allergies, dyslexia, ADD, anxiety, and depression. But I will tell you that what you have does not define what you can become. Why not you? So awesome. You're seeing it on the screen there with the American flag behind him representing Team USA. You can't represent Team USA and what we stand for any better than that. That's what the Olympics is all about. So I wanted to start off episode 241 with that because a lot of people are struggling out there. A lot of people are silently suffering. They're afraid to ask for help. They're just struggling. And when you see a message like that, it can literally impact thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So stick taps for Noah Lyles for putting that message out there for people to read. And that's what the Olympics are all about right there. My new favorite athlete right now competing in the Olympics for sure. So I wanted to share that for everyone on Catfish on Ice here tonight. Awesome stuff there.
Absolutely.
So yes, so let's get it in. Let's start getting into the hockey talk here with my top 10 bold offseason predictions. So Max, you said you already read them.
I did, and again I agree. I thought most of them were pretty spot on.
All right, so if you don't have the list in front of you or you don't remember, that's fine. But do you want to pick maybe one prediction you can remember where you thought that one is a stretch? I don't know if that can happen. If not, let me start.
The one where I looked, I guess one of them I remember where I looked at, I'm like, I'm not 100% sure, is when you said Andrew Brunette will win the Jack Adams. Again, not saying that anything against Andrew Brunette, and I am a huge fan of Andrew Brunette. He's done great things since he's been the Preds coach. I've almost had nothing but good things to say about him.
Yeah.
He was a very, very worthy Jack Adams nominee this past year. But it kind of goes back to what you're saying about the honeymoon phase being over in a sense. You know, Andrew Brunette, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, if he were to kind of do what he did last year, because people know him better, that he's not in it again. But again, the expectations are going to be much, much higher for a guy like Andrew Brunette, especially now that he's got the team in front of him. This past year, he had not had the team at all in front of him that you need at all. Most people would look at the Preds roster from 2023-24 and ask, how was that team in the playoffs at all, let alone almost winning a series? You're not going to have that this year. You're not going to you have a team that should absolutely make the playoffs, should absolutely win a series, should absolutely be one of the threats there. So if you're going to be top 3 in the Central, maybe even top 2, which a lot of people, including myself, expect the Preds are going to be, you're going to look at that saying you kind of expected that. So again, it still could very well happen for Andrew Brunette. And even with a squad like this, you could absolutely achieve unexpected things. But it's going to be harder with that expectation, especially with significantly more talent on this roster, and also more offense coming from the back end with Brady Shea as well. I mean, so I think it's the stakes are much higher. Yeah, the stakes are much higher. I've mentioned constantly that the feeling of this time last year in 2023 and this time now we're currently sitting in feels much different, as it should. That's what happens when you sign guys like Steven Stamkos. But let's start with that one. My first out of 10. We're going to run through these kind of quick, otherwise we'll be here all night. But first of my 10 bold predictions, and they're bold for a reason. I take chances here. You have to take chances. But they're still kind of realistic. That's the point here. And it wasn't easy to come up with this list. But Andrew Brunette wins the Jack Adams. So Brunette's finished second in the voting twice. And he's in his very, very short tenure of being an NHL head coach. Yeah, that's insane.
He finished second for the Florida Panthers in what he did when he took over that team. And I would think that at the time, some people scrutinized him not getting the job over Paul Maurice. But I think Paul Maurice has shut everyone up on that because he's equally one of the best coaches in the league.
He won a Stanley Cup.
Well, yeah, obviously. But even before that, even before he won the Stanley Cup, I think you could have argued that they made the right decision there. But, yeah, and then he just finished second this past year in his first year with the Predators as head coach, only finished behind Rick Tocchet of the Vancouver Canucks. Of course, the team
Those are his only 2 years coaching, right?
I'm pretty sure that he had 2 years and 2 runner-ups.
When has that happened before?
I mean, I need an encyclopedia for that. I'm not sure.
Crazy.
But here's my bold prediction. Andrew Brunette wins the Jack Adams Award. And, of course, that's crazy. And they vote on this based on regular season, not postseason.
Right.
And a lot of what this team's going to be judged on, by the fan base at least, is what they do when and if they get in the postseason. That's another thing I'm going to get into with my bold predictions. But when it comes to Burnett, 47-30-5 record in his first season under the helm as head coach of the Nashville Predators for a point percentage of .604, which is really solid considering he took over a team that was in flux. Everyone said they were in transition. We know what he did. Yeah. Even after a slow start, which was very expected, very understood, no one was really panicking that much when this team started off slow because it was expected. But Trotz has emptied the bank account this offseason. He's done what a GM is supposed to do. I don't think he's done any we talked about in the previous episode, I believe, has Trotz mortgaged the future. Me and Max both agreed that he has not. He did what a GM is supposed to do, especially when you have that much money.
Yep.
And he signed some pretty sensible contracts, honestly. Yeah. So it's on Andrew Burnett now to deliver the results on the ice. And so here's my thing. I think the Predators are going to have for this prediction to come true, for Andrew Burnett to get the Jack Adams Award, the first Jack Adams Award winner for the Nashville Predators in their history, which is also really surprising.
That is insane.
Considering all those years that Barry Trotz, as this team's head coach, really milked everything he could out of those Predators teams. Yeah. He coached this team to some playoff years with not a lot to work with in terms of elite superstar talent. But Barry Trotz had a couple nominations for the Jack Adams Award. Peter Laviolette also had a nomination as head coach of this Preds team, but they've never had a Jack Adams Award winner. I think the Predators are definitely going to have to be above 100 points for Burnett to get that achievement, and I think they're going to have to be definitely in the top three. Okay, since this is a regular season award, they're going to for sure have to be top three because, as Max just prefaced, this team's got much higher expectations. The bar's a lot higher. So no one's going to fall in love with Andrew Burnett if the team barely squeaks in the playoffs again.
No, not at all.
So this is a long shot here. This is one of my bold predictions that I think is maybe the longest shot out of all of them. But if the Preds can somehow surge to being a third or second place team, I don't even think they have to win the division necessarily. No. They can be a third or second place team, and I think he's got a good chance to possibly win it. So he's just got so much respect around the league. All right, let's go to my next bold prediction here. We've also talked about this a lot, Max, in this offseason. The Preds will finish with a top 5 power play. How do you feel about that one, Max?
That's another one where it could be potentially stretching it. You know, obviously the expectations are going to be high. I don't know. I probably would say probably not quite, just because, again, you're going to have, again, some more moving parts, even though you brought a lot of talent in. And I could easily see them doing some mixing and matching. I could see sometimes them trying to go with like the all-in unit with, of course, all your big guns. Then at some points they might try and, you got to kind of balance out the wealth a little bit. Maybe put Evangelista or someone on the first unit. Maybe Marshall or someone down to the second unit. But I don't know. I could see like definitely like top 7, but top 5 maybe not quite.
It's tough to finish it.
Definitely, it's got to be. Definitely, you hope definitely top 10
to finish top 5. I mean, you've got to be up there with the most elite of the elite power plays, and we already know what those power plays are: Colorado, Edmonton, Tampa. Maybe not so much. That could be a team that they were the top power play this past year. So I got some numbers
they
for.
Certainly lost the power play weapon.
So I got some numbers for you. You got to think, can Nashville flip-flop with Tampa? So Tampa was the leading power play team last year with a, let's see, I got the numbers down here. Tampa had a 28.6 success rate last year. That's crazy. For a whole season.
It's insane.
28.6%. Your top 5 power play teams this past season: Tampa Bay, Carolina, New York Rangers, Edmonton Oilers, Colorado Avalanche. Those are your top 5. Your 5th place team, which was Colorado, had a 24.4 36.5% success rate. You look at what Andrew Brunette did. He did improve this team's overall power play that was abysmal under the last year of John Hines. 27th in the league under the last year of John Hines for a 17.6% success rate. Andrew Brunette got him up to 16th place, but what I really look at is not the finish among NHL teams, but the percentage. He raised the success rate up 4 points, which maybe doesn't sound like a lot, but that's actually a pretty big
for a power play in the NHL.
That's a big increase from one year to the next.
No, that's not small at all.
And you got to thank Trotz in this as well in that improvement, and I mentioned this, for going out and getting Gus Nyquist and Ryan O'Reilly, because those two, along with Forsberg, they just feasted on the power play this past year. Here's why I think the Predators are definitely a shoo-in to be top 10, but I went with the bold prediction of top 5 because I actually think the Predators are going to have a 1-2 punch on their power play. I think their second unit is going to be something to be reckoned with as well. That's really where my thinking is on this bold prediction. I think that Brunette is going to, being the power play specialist that he is as a head coach, he's going to see the value in wearing a penalty kill out by now if the top unit's out there and it's just dominating zone time and it's just breathing down the neck of a penalty kill and they're not even the penalty kill can't even clear the zone, which is very likely to happen with this top unit that's going to be loaded, then of course you're not going to see that second unit. But I think there's going to be situations this season where that second unit gets called upon and they're going to finish the job. I love the thought, we've already talked about how we think this is going to go, but let's say they do load up heavy on the top unit with all the veterans and all the superstars. I love the thought of Luke Evangelista and Tommy Novak settling in on that second unit along with Gus Nyquist possibly. They can do damage. Brady Shea, put him down there on the second unit. That's going to be a force to be reckoned with as a second unit.
Yeah, no, and honestly, me personally, I kind of think they should I kind of think they should go with the spread the wealth with potentially putting Evangelista up top and then Marceau down low. I don't know. I think it kind of balances it out a little bit. That's personally what I would like to see.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard, like whenever you got that much talent and you have the big guns, it's kind of hard to say no to that. But I do agree with you though that this the depth on this power play is definitely better than what we've had in recent years by a lot. Definitely.
All right, so that is definitely a big, bold prediction there. It's going to be really, really difficult to get top 5, but we'll see what happens. All right, let's go to my next bold prediction here. Stamkos will top 40 goals. We've already also talked about this. We did some big predictions earlier in the season talking about Stamkos. Max, I think I remember you saying that Stamkos will get 40-plus goals. Him and Forsberg will get 40 goals.
I had to actually go look it back up to see what I said. But no, I did say Stamkos 41 goals, 37 assists.
There you go. I love you bringing the receipts here, Max. Yep. That's awesome. All right, so I don't think this is as bold as some of the other ones, but it's still, this is why I call this a bold prediction. There are a lot of naysayers out there. A lot of them reside in Tampa Bay who think, you know what, Stamkos ain't going to be able to do it. He's not going to translate his same success to Nashville. For whatever reason, they don't have as much respect in our roster based on what Stamkos played. And I get it. We don't have a Braden Point. We don't have a we certainly don't have a Nikita Kucherov. No one does. We don't have a Victor Hedman, although we have Roman Josi.
We have closer to that than like Kucherov and Point, though.
So my point is, everyone. I think a lot of people who are very skeptical about Stamkos translating his success. I think a lot of those people are people who don't really follow the Predators very closely. And you can understand that. You're talking about Eastern Conference fans here. How many Tampa Bay Lightning fans are just studying the Predators with all this discipline? Probably not. So I can understand where they're coming from. I've got friends who are some Tampa Bay Lightning fans who don't follow the Predators closely. So, I mean, I get where they're coming from, but it is a bold prediction. To ask for 40 goals from Stamkos is still, I think, a bold prediction because you don't know. It's very possible that Stamkos gets off to a slow start. And it takes some time to build his chemistry with whoever he's playing with. Certainly, it might take some time to build some chemistry with Tommy Novak. I don't think anyone's arguing with that. It might be a bumpy ride to open the season.
I will say though, and I watched Stamkos's goals from last year, and I'm not trying to take away anything from guys like Kucherov and Point, and I very much agree that the Preds don't have quite those guys. But I looked at Stamkos's goals, and it's not like every time he's scoring off of absolutely crazy assists. Like his talent, like kind of carries it to a great degree.
It's his one-timer.
Yeah,
it really is. I mean, you feed him the puck, his accuracy is ridiculous. He's got that pinpoint, just ridiculous release and shot, and obviously his hockey IQ is out of this world. So he knows where to be. He knows what to do. It's all going to be on what can his line mates feed off that, and most of that's going to come off the power play. I wouldn't shock me at all if Stamkos gets around 20 power play goals for this team. He can score half of his 40-plus goals that I'm predicting on the power play. So it is a bold prediction, but Stamkos has hit the 40-goal mark plenty of times in his career. I've got it right here in front of me. 7 times, Stamkos. Now, a lot of times earlier on in his career, but 2 of the last 3 seasons, Stamkos has hit 40 or more goals. So don't tell me that he's just completely fallen off in the last 5 years. He hit 40 goals this past season on a much less talented Tampa Bay team. That Tampa team wasn't he was still playing with great line mates, don't get me wrong there. But here's another thing. The Preds have been showing that they can produce 40-goal scorers again. It's not like Stamkos is coming in and he would just be something that the Predators have never seen before. Forsberg is hitting 40-plus goals. Duchesne did it not too long ago. So this team is changing. It's not the old-school Predators that where the leading goal scorer scores 30 goals maybe. For the longest time, Victor Arvidsson had the single-season goal record for this team. And it was 34 goals or something like that. Is that not crazy for you to think that was the single-season goal record for a long time, Max?
That is insane.
It was 34.
Forsberg and Duchesne.
That was 2021, 22. That record stood for a long... That's crazy. 34 goals? But this team is changing.
Great, but it's more now. Also, one thing I forgot to mention, kind of going back to the power play, is I watched something on NHL Network that the guys posted over there, and they were breaking down what the Preds power play is going to look like now that you add a Stamkos, now that you add a Marchessault, Brady Shea. But they were specifically talking about Stamkos, and they brought up many goals that the Preds scored last year on the power play, and they kind of broke it down and said, if you have Stamkos in his spot instead of a guy like Nyquist, who not only is a left-handed shot, but he's obviously not the shooter Stamkos is. They're if you had Stamkos in those chances, they had him open and they were going to score.
Yeah.
So they clearly can set him up. And again, like I say, Stamkos's talent is going to carry it to a good degree. And it's also one of those things where if it was that easy to stop, they would do it by now, though. Stamkos is not one of those guys who's just completely getting carried by his teammates. I mean, he's definitely part of it, but he has immense talent as well. And I don't think his shot is falling off. That's the one part of it I don't think is going to.
No, I mean, most people will say that a lot of what's falling off in Stamkos' game is at 5-on-5 when it comes to just maybe some defensive metrics. Definitely his speed is not the same as it used to be.
That's why we say, don't put him at center because he doesn't have to drive. If he's going to play on left wing, he won't have to drive the offense the same.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. All right, let's get to my next one here. All right, this one is, I'll call it a medium when it comes to bold prediction scale. I don't think it's crazy to think about, but I'll still call it bold. Saros gets another Vezina Trophy nomination.
I actually agree with that one.
Which means top 3. It doesn't, and I make this very clear. I'm not saying he's going to win it. That would be super bold. I'm not ready to go that far because this league has so many good goalies, and every year there's a new. Have you noticed this, Max? Every year there's a new goalie that we either looked at that goalie and thought, it's a mid-tier goalie and they decide to just have a crazy year. There's just it's a golden age of goalies that we're in right now. There's so many good ones. So it's really hard to just say, oh, Saros is going to finally win his first one. I've actually made that prediction in the past and I was wrong, unfortunately. I'm not ready to go that far, but I am going to give him a nomination. I think he's going to have a bounce back here. I think his goals saved above expected is going to be much, much better. It was awful this past year by his standards. It was in the negative. Kevin Lankinen finished ahead of UC Saros in that category, which is crazy. And goal saved above expected is my favorite stat to use for a goalie because that is the stat that tells you how many times that goalie rose above and beyond and bailed out their team to make saves that shouldn't have been made. And we know Saros to be a goalie that can definitely do that, but he wasn't quite his normal self this past season. He was still really solid, but he wasn't himself. No. I think he makes a huge bounce back here.
I think so too. And I think a big part of that too is the Preds bring in Mitch Korn, who's a legendary goaltender coach.
Good point.
Fixing his one thing I really look for with Saros is fixing the deficiency he has. Where as great as Saros is, like he hasn't been very good at stopping pucks when he gets screened. I look for Mitch Korn to potentially try and really work on that with Saros. And if that can, I don't want to say it could completely fix it. If that can improve, then that really helps Saros' game. And again, we all know Saros is really talented, and you had a great coach with that track record. I don't know. I kind of think there's a chance he wins it this year.
There's definitely a chance,
biased, but with that.
But I think about some of these. I think about all these other outstanding goalies in the league. I mean, I think Jake Ottinger is definitely someone you can make a good prediction for to win this year. You think about the good teams who are going to be winning a lot of games, and then you match them with good goalies. That's kind of how I think about it. So Jake Ottinger is an easy one for me to think about as possibly being someone who could win their first Vezina. But and there's probably someone we don't know about right now. Maybe we know of the goalie, but we don't expect that goalie to just rise up this year. It's Thatcher Demko is always going to be someone you have to keep your eye on. So I mean, it's going to be an interesting year. But here's another reason why I think that Saros has a great chance. And I don't love this stat. No one does. It's not a great stat to use in terms of how good a goalie is. But at the same time, it is important when it comes to Vezina nominations. How well is your team doing?
Right.
A goalie's most likely not going to win a Vezina trophy if his team is not in the playoffs and not performing very, very well. That goes down to win-loss record. You love or hate the stat. Most people hate it. But I think that Saros is going to get a lot more goal support this year. And he's going to win a lot more games. Saros has never won more than 40 games in a season as a goalie. So, as much as we don't like the stat, if he wins over 40 games and his win-loss record looks really, really good and the team's winning more games and they're competing for a top 3 spot, it's going to boost his Vezina trophy outlook as well. Yeah, it's just going to happen. It just goes hand in hand.
Yep.
All right. Let's go down to the next one. Let's knock them out quick. Here's one that I think is kind of a bold prediction for sure. I think this one's could definitely not happen, but I'm going with it. Zachary Leroux makes his NHL debut.
I think there's a chance of that because again, injuries could happen. And whatever. We all know that whatever the coaches throw out in the first night of the season doesn't always stick for the whole year. I know. I actually kind of like that one. I think sooner or later, I can see him getting a game.
And he kind of feels like the next man up, at least when it comes.
He feels definitely in that top 3 of guys with opportunity next.
Definitely when you talk about the forwards, at least. Now, when it comes to the defensemen, you would say Mark Del Gaizo, but or Adam Wilsby, who has not made his NHL debut yet. So that would be a cool story. But I mean. We kind of look at this Preds team right now, and I don't think we're going to see a ton of training camp competition. We don't know yet. Roster changes could still happen from here on out. But as we sit right now, I don't see a lot of training camp position battles right now. Overall, I feel like the starting lineup for game one of 2024-25 is pretty set. I don't see Zachary LaRue going into training camp and setting the world on fire and somehow saying, yeah, we got to start this guy game one. I don't see that happening. I think that Trotz is very happy with Michael McCarron and those guys down there in the bottom six. I think that for LaRue to make his NHL debut, it's going to come later in the season when guys are banged up, when the grind of the season is really hitting a head point and he's waivers protected. So you can call him up and get him a few games if you want, especially if some injuries happen, which seem to always be inevitable, or let's say a guy's just not playing well and whatever. I think that there's a good chance that Trotz wants to see what this guy's made of at some point this season on the NHL level.
Yeah, no, I think, as far as, and I actually recently wrote an article about this, predicting what the Preds lines would look like this year. I think there's going to be a few questions in the bottom six. So I think, of course, like you said, McCarron's going to make it. I think Cole Smith's definitely going to make it. Colton Sissons, we know, is going to make it. Potentially those younger guys, when you get into like your guys like Parssinen, and of course you got your roster bubble guys like Mark Jankowski, who will be, of course, competing. You'll never know if he's going to make, although he did really well towards the end of last year. Tomasino is going to be also in that mix as well. So there's going to be a few questions, but by and large, I definitely do agree that, obviously the big guys in the lineup, like your Forsbergs, Marceaus, those guys here, they're going to be in the lineup. But like you said, I definitely think that, it's most of this lineup is pretty set in stone.
Yep. Big thing for LaRue is that really makes me think this is what's really putting him over the edge to be considered to get NHL duty within the next season is what he did in the Calder Cup playoffs. 10 goals in 15 games this guy put up. That's insane efficiency. This was his first season of professional hockey, people. Yes, the AHL is considered professional hockey. 10 goals in 15 games to complete his first season in professional hockey. 48 points in 66 games overall in the regular season. I mean, and look, the future was looking really grim there for a little bit just due to his lack of discipline.
Yeah.
And that's really, sometimes he's his own worst enemy in that regard. He had a boatload of penalty minutes this past year, and you got to take the good with the bad when it comes to LaRue. You got to walk that fine line with him. And I think Trotz, at some point, if the opportunity presents itself, he's not going to force LaRue into the lineup, but if the opportunity presents itself, I think Trotz is going to want to see how he responds against NHL players. And I don't think that would hurt LaRue at all if you test him up there and see what he does.
And I think another thing, too, is what you just said, kind of with the lack of discipline sometimes and, the way he plays could get him in trouble. Like you said, you got to take the good with the bad. But I think another factor that could influence him making a debut is there's going to be no concerns about whether he can, physically take guys in the NHL. We know that's his bread and butter. And, someone like we talked about in the playoffs, Tommy Novak, his lack of size and physicality exposed him. You're not going to get that same thing with Zach LaRue.
Love it. Yeah, good point.
And from a physical standpoint, he can match up with just about anyone.
Yeah, and to kind of go off of that, you call Zachary LaRue up, and this dude's stepping up, and he's being not like an enforcer because he's got offensive skill. He's not going to just be an enforcer, but you bring him into let's say you give him a few games to see what he's all about on the NHL level, and he's going out there and he's setting a tone, and he's kind of playing like a Kiefer Sherwood type of player likes to play, and he's going out there and he's dictating pace and he's raising that intensity. That's all you're going to need to see from Trotz. Trotz will be like, all right, I love this kid. This kid's doing this against NHL players. I'm happy. And then you probably send him back to Milwaukee. But I think we see him at some point come up. I could be totally wrong on that. There's definitely people out there who think, no, this guy needs another full year in the AHL, and I understand that standpoint too. But we'll see what happens. I
think he does.
But he's really raised. He's definitely one of the top prospects people are watching.
Absolutely.
All right, Another one here. Preds will reach. I went to the exact point. I went past 100 points, Max. 100 point. They finished with 99 last year, so I had to go a little bit further than that. Preds will reach 105 points, finish in the top 3 of the Central. I didn't go win the Central. I'm not that crazy. 105 points, though. That would be one of the highest marks of their. I think that would be 4th highest in their team's history. Would be 105 points.
I went back again to my receipts from what we said.
Yeah.
Last episode, I said 107 points in second in the Central. Second place behind the Dallas Stars.
So you got to agree with this one then, yeah.
Oh yeah, I have to.
So yeah, they've only passed 105 points 3 times in their franchise history: 05, 06, 06, 07, and the President's Trophy season 2017, 2018. They have reached 104 points twice. But when you look at this team on paper, I mean, come on. It screams 100 points at least.
Absolutely.
It'll be a travesty if they don't reach 100 points. Now, I will say, ultimately, the fans only care about what is this team going to do in the playoffs. Even if this team barely squeaks into the playoffs, let's say that ends up happening again because of injuries or whatever. It could happen. But if they squeak in, and even Stamkos has brought this up, ultimately, we have a team that we want to go deep in the playoffs. It's not about making the playoffs and none of that. So, but just purely on regular season, I think 105 points is my benchmark. Yep. That I'm just out of my head. I pulled it out. That's the number I came up with. 105 points, which would be a very high total that this franchise has not reached very often in their history. I think that's a very fair benchmark to put at.
I think it's very doable.
But even 105 points might not be enough to finish top 3.
I agree.
And just give you an idea of last season, the Stars won the division with 113 points. The Jets had 110, and the Avs had 107. So judging by, I'm not saying every season's the same, obviously, but judging by last season, 105 would have not been enough to be in the top 3. So I'm just saying that's my benchmark. We'll see what happens there. All right, next one. Preds break their first-round curse dating back to 2018. That's got to happen, or fans are going to be definitely the honeymoon will be over with Andrew Brunette if that happens. If they don't get past the first round, ooh.
Yeah, especially with of how it looked like this summer, this team was going to potentially continue to get younger, kind of prepare for the future more. If you're going to do what you did and you don't win a playoff series.
And I'll even make the argument that this team needs to make it. So really, I mean, it's hard to really proclaim this right now, like 2 months from the regular season even starting. But just sitting here right now and expecting this team to have a really good regular season, a really strong regular season. I think they're going to be surging into the playoffs. I think they're going to have a lot of people picking them to maybe win a Stanley Cup. I think they're going to be cruising. I think they're going to look really good. I almost feel like I'm leaning towards it's going to feel like a failure if they don't at least make the Western Conference Finals. I'm willing to go that far, Max.
I don't know if I'm quite there. I mean, I think if you make it out of the first round and get completely embarrassed in the second round, sure. I think if you, it really depends on the way you do. Like, I think if you go like a full hard-fought 7 games with Dallas, you just come up short, it's understandable. Or but I mean, I don't totally disagree though. I mean, you gotta show you're at least a contender, like a real contender, one way or the other. Which it's a lot of people don't like to hear this, will not say it, but even if you make it to the second round, you just come up short to a team in the second round, still doesn't mean you're not a contender.
That's true. That's just people have a lot of PTSD when it comes to losing in the first round. I mean, you take out 2017, and this team is just cursed in the first round. I mean, yeah, they've made it past the first round other than 2017, but only one Western Conference Finals appearance, and that was 2017. That's bad. I no matter how you slice it, you've been to the playoffs all those years. All those years you've made the playoffs, and you mean to tell me you've only made it past the second round once? And that's the ultimate undoing of David Poile. That's why the fan base turned on David Poile, despite everything he accomplished, despite the fact that he was the general manager of a Southern-based team that no one gave a rat's chance in hell of succeeding. He pushed them through what looked like they were going to be sold off and shipped to Canada, and they figured out a way to sell tickets. He had a lot of great drafting through those years. I will call Shea Weber Shea Weber and Pecorine saved this franchise from being sent to Canada. I've said that so many times. Shea Weber and Pecorine. If those two guys, both drafted by David Poile, do not land with this franchise, I'm not so sure that enough fans would have showed up to Bridgestone Arena to support this team, and they probably would have went to Canada. I really, truly feel that way in my heart of hearts. So David Poile was a great general manager, but the fan base turned on him because you got to show up in the postseason ultimately. And the fan base got really, really sick and tired of getting the participation trophy. They got sick of being the punching bag by all these other fan bases who ask, how many Stanley Cups do you have? Oh, you're a cute little team. You made the playoffs. Congratulations. Here's a cookie. Like, that's really how it feels. And so Trotz is trying to up the ante and change it now. You know? And Trotz feels that pain. He totally feels it because he was in it. He's even though he left for a little bit, you know, and he did other things, and the New York Islanders did him so dirty. They should have never let him go as head coach. That still makes no sense to me. But it's just that's how it works. This fan base deserves playoff success. It truly does. So number 3, Luke Evangelista reaches the 50-point plateau. He would only have to increase his point total by 11 points from last season. I don't think that's a stretch.
No, I don't think I think it's actually pretty expected.
It is expected, but here's why I feel like it's still a bold prediction. How much is he going to be buried in the bottom 6, Max? And how much is his ice time going to be impacted? How much is his line mates going to be shuffled around where he can't get settled?
Yeah,
that's what scares me. I have 100% confidence in Luke Evangelista to do what he does.
Oh yeah, I'm a huge believer in Evangelista.
I'm worried about what's going on around him if he is, because
that's fair.
On a normal team, if this team was still following the script of being a retooling team, he's in the top 6, no doubt. I've gotten comments on social media from a lot of people telling me I really want to see Luke Evangelista in the top 6, and I understand that sentiment, but it can't happen.
No,
are you gonna put Jonathan? Are you gonna
way potentially? And it's very low.
You gonna put Jonathan Marchessault in the bottom 6?
My thought, you know, and again, very, very low chance. If Gus Nyquist comes down back to earth, you maybe put him on the 3rd line. And again, that's very unlikely to happen.
If that were to happen, Max, then shit's going sideways. Sorry, didn't mean to say that, but it is. It's going sideways if Gus Nyquist goes into the bottom 6. That means things are going horribly wrong.
I think a plausible way that you could potentially get that prediction on Evangelista, besides him improving, which I very expect he can take a step forward. Again, huge believer in him. He's shown a lot of good things. But we kind of talked about earlier, inevitably there are going to be injuries that happen. And if we're talking about next men up who can be in that top 6, you got Evangelista.
He's next up,
knocking on the door.
Well, you also got to wonder. Here's another way that Evangelista could. Well, he's primarily a right wing, so you've already got Nyquist and Marchessault ahead of him, so he's kind of got a roadblock.
Well, Marchessault can also play on the left side too.
He could, and so if you move Stamkos to center and Novak gets moved to the bottom 6, which is also not preferred. We don't want to see this happen.
No.
But that could also pave the way for Evangelista to move into the top 6.
Again, But again, I think
it's a good problem to have.
The question is, we nowadays, especially on the wing, is it that big of a deal if maybe Evangelista tries out the left side? Is it that?
No, it's not.
That foreign to him?
He could be over there. I don't think it's. You can switch wings a lot easier. I feel like. Yeah, it happens a lot. So it's definitely not something that could be a big deal if they got to figure out a way to put him up there. But either way, even if he does stay in the bottom six, I think he can hit 50 points. And a big reason why is goes back to an earlier prediction. These are all kind of tied together in a way. I think the second power play unit is going to be much better for the Preds, and I think Luke Evangelista is going to have a much better presence on the power play this year with more confidence. Well, he could be, and we've mentioned that as well. So, all right, we are almost an hour into the episode through my 10 bold predictions. All right, let's get to this one. Number 2, this one is so hard, but I threw it in here, and I could be totally wrong. It's way too long in the future to really be saying this, but Preds add another big piece at the 2025 trade deadline. And when I say big piece, I don't mean like, they add a prospect or they add like an Anthony Beauvillier type of player. No, I'm saying they add someone that Trotz is like, we're going for this guy. We're getting him. And I've already looked ahead at some free agents for the 2025 offseason. And I'm not saying, so let me give you some big ones first. I'm not predicting these guys are coming to the Preds, but there are some major headline free agents for 2025. Let's go with, how about Leon Draisaitl? How about Brock Besser? Sidney Crosby. We don't know what's going to happen with Mitch Marner.
That's the one where no one knows. I would be very surprised if Draisaitl does not get something done before the next deadline. I think there's next to no chance he leaves.
And I'm pretty sure no Predators fan wants to see Sidney Crosby come here. But and I'm not saying it's going to happen, obviously. Yeah. But Brock Besser is interesting.
That's one that's interesting.
But here's a more realistic one for me. Let's just think about it this way. We can both agree, sitting here right now, that the Preds are very thin at center. They look good at center, but they're thin. And if something goes wrong, it's not going to take much for the Predators to be in trouble at center. And so I could see a scenario where the Preds are going into the 2025 trade deadline and Trotz is not content with what's going on at that position, and he pulls off some type of crazy trade. And I'm looking at 2 Panthers players who are 2025 free agents, Carter Verhaeghe and Sam Bennett.
That I've actually talked a little bit about Verhaeghe, not really talk, kind of just rambling around. I posted something on Twitter once. Again, though, I said it last episode, I say it again. One guy who I'm really...
Gotta plug in my computer real quick. Hold on. I'm listening.
Yeah. I was saying one guy who I really have my eye on, who has a connection with Trotz and who's done well in the playoffs. Again, Brock Nelson of the New York Islanders. I could really see Trotz making a run after him, especially because he knows him so well. Another guy I could see, too, who's going to be a free agent, and I can't imagine he's going to be re-signing with this club, and I bet they will be in a selling position. Claude Giroux of the Ottawa Senators. That's one I could see as well. But Brock Nelson's really the one guy I'm like, okay, I could really see Barry Trotz locking in on him and trying to do what he can to get him from the Islanders to here.
I mean, it is so far in the future, but at the same time, I just wanted to throw that out there. And we've already kind of seen how Trotz is not afraid to take chances.
Not.
He's got some cojones, as they like to say. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. All right, here's the last one, and this is going to actually help us segue into the next segment here.
I know where this is going.
Yeah, last one here. My last bold prediction, and maybe it's not even that bold anymore. It might be
I don't even think it is.
But it's okay. Cody Glass is traded before the regular season starts. I think before regular season starts might be a little bold.
You want to hear an even bolder prediction?
All right, go for it.
Me for this one? I think there's a non-zero chance he gets put on waivers.
Okay. I mean, he at this point he might be a salary cap dump. I mean, I think that's kind of where I'm going with it.
I mean, as we're going to talk about, I don't want to get too far, but like you got to get the cap space from somewhere. And I don't see any way other than like Glass himself, like I said, or like Dante Fabro. Somehow, some way. And you're, like we say, the Preds don't have leverage here.
I mean, and look, there's so many just like passionate, diehard supporters of Cody Glass, and I get it. He's such a likable player, and his story is so amazing. And we all wanted Cody Glass's redemption story to be in Nashville. We wanted him to seize the moment, take that, and a lot of people feel like he's been done wrong, and he hasn't gotten the full opportunity that he should get here. They feel like it's Vegas 2.0, how he's been treated here. But in reality, Trotz is trying to win a Stanley Cup, and for whatever reason, he didn't see it in Cody Glass to be what really we need Cody Glass to be, which is a top 6 center.
And, let's face it, last year, of course, there was a lot of bad happening to him. And of course, the injuries were, I would say, the primary thing that derailed him. But, I mean, he still had time. He still had opportunities. Even like, and I know this is a very small sample size, but in like the 4 or 5 games that before he got injured, he was still invisible. And I mean, again, it's easy for us to say as like fans, people who just watch the games and nothing more, saying like, yeah, he should be in the line from what we see. But like, we're not in the locker room. We don't see what's going on. And, for a team, like we say, Barry Trotz and Brunette want to win. And I don't really feel like I can blame them for not seeing that in Glass. It's tough, but I mean, sports are a tough business, and you got to do what you can. It's not about one person. It's about the greater good.
So here's where the Predators are at. They've got less than $600,000 in salary cap space right now, just shy of it. They've got 2 RFAs that we're going to talk about here in a little bit that still aren't signed, that many feel have a much clearer pathway to be in the starting lineup than Cody Glass does. And Cody Glass is making $2.5 million. And when you're trying to clear cap space right now, there's realistically only a few players you can look at right now. It comes down to like Cody Glass and Dante Fabro, and we've already talked about Dante Fabro a lot. Though they're kind of 1A and 1B. Like, you can make arguments that both need to be traded, but when it comes to Cody Glass, it's going to be hard because I do think there's some teams out there who would love to take a flyer on him. I think he would be perfect for a rebuilding team who isn't necessarily in win now mode, and they have plenty of salary cap space to take on $2.5 million, and they want to take on a young player and let Cody Glass spread his wings and without much pressure and see what happens. But he's making $2.5 million right now, and it's just, look, I think he deserves a fresh start, Cody Glass.
I do too.
I don't want to see him be a healthy scratch.
No.
Like he's been. I think he deserves more than that. And he's still so fresh into his NHL career that you don't want his best years to be wasted sitting on the bench when he's got incredible talent that we know he has. He scored a hat trick. We know he's talented, all right? So this is just how these things work. And it could end up being a salary cap dump, like Max just said.
Yeah, sad as it is.
Or it could end up being a sense where the Predators trade him to get a 6th-round draft pick or something. I don't know. But
not ideal either way.
Okay, so those are my 10 bold predictions there. We'll share some clips from this on social media. I'm sure we'll get plenty of responses on that throughout. But I'm going to tell you about our sponsor here. Let's tell you about DraftKings first tonight. So DraftKings is our OG sponsor, of course, and sponsoring episode 241 tonight. And, the beautiful thing about sports, about being a sports fan, is there's only like 2 days the whole year without a game. 2. With so much happening and so much action, that makes just about every day game day at DraftKings Sportsbook pretty awesome. So right now we got the Olympics going, of course. Summer Olympics have been great. A lot of good stuff. The Team USA is just killing it with the medals right now. Gold medals. They're leading the medal count. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple, like picking a team to win. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. It really couldn't be easier. We've got NFL preseason starting. You gotta have a lot of confidence to bet on NFL preseason, but there's people out there who like to do it, trust me. So Thursday, August 8th, coming up this week, we got the Detroit Lions at the New York Giants in preseason action, and you can take the Giants at -3.5 spread. You got the Panthers taking on the New England Patriots. You can take the Patriots at a -4 spread. Falcons and the Dolphins on Friday. And you got a 2.5 point spread there favoring the Falcons. And how about our Tennessee Titans? What is DraftKings saying about the Titans? They're playing at home on Saturday against the 49ers. And hey, look at that. The Titans are -4 point favorites in the preseason. Isn't it bad to win in the preseason, Max? Didn't like the Detroit Lions, weren't they famous for always going undefeated in the preseason?
I mean, it's hard to have any real correlation. I personally put no weight on it. You just got to get to the regular season.
Exactly. And you got I don't know. Yeah, I know. But still, okay, so some people do like to have fun in the preseason. So if you are new to DraftKings, you got to check this out. New customers bet $5 and get 150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5 only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Deposit and eligibility restrictions apply. See terms and responsible gaming resources at dkng.com/base. All right, there you go. DraftKings, the latest promo code for you. Let's rank our captains, Max. Ready for that?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm going to get my rankings on the screen here, and we'll see how you differ from my rankings here. I actually I scratched out my rankings a couple times because I looked at it and I didn't agree with it. So this is what I officially came up with here. So there you have it. I put Shea Weber ahead of Roman Josi. That was the biggest problem I had to deal with.
It honestly I probably due to recency bias and that stuff, I probably put Josi ahead by one, but I mean, I had Fisher and are not ranked as is shown right there. And to be completely honest, I was not watching the Preds when Fitzgerald, Tiemann, and Johnson were captain, so I had nothing there. But I put Josi at 1, Weber at 2, Fisher 3, and Arnott at 4.
So I put Weber number 1 because I already prefaced this earlier in the episode. I feel like Shea Weber, along with Pecorine, was one of the saviors of this team to carry them through the dark years when this team was almost relocated. And there's still a little bit of remorse that he was traded for PK Subban, even though PK Subban...
Yeah, that was not his choice.
Even though PK Subban was a great, great player who was a big part of that Stanley Cup run, it's still so difficult to think that Shea Weber was traded that day. I mean, that was just one of the most insane trades ever. Yeah. 1-for-1 swaps. When you think of 1-for-1 NHL swaps, that was one of the biggest ones ever. I think Roman Josi still has a little bit of work to do before I'm going to put him ahead of Shea Weber. He's close.
It is neck and neck.
Because I don't just look at stats when I think about captains. And And that's why I put Mike Fisher at number 3. He was only captain for 1 year.
Yeah.
But he was the captain of the Stanley Cup team. That's got to hold some serious weight.
He was, wasn't he? Yeah, that is true. He was during that part, yeah.
That's the only reason I put him at number 3. I originally had Mike Fisher much further back on the list. But then I thought about it. I'm like, wait a minute. He was the captain of the only time this team's ever not only made it to the Stanley Cup final, but they even made it to a conference final. So I had to put him there. That holds a lot of weight for me. And he was always a leadership type of guy out there. You just saw him out there. And he's still a big part of this franchise. I mean, obviously with Carrie Underwood and what she means to the franchise. I mean, come on. I put Jason Arnott number 4 because he was such a big player that came to this team. I really wanted to put Tom Fitzgerald higher because he was the first captain of this franchise, but he just wasn't he was more of just a captain. He didn't really put up a lot of points. He wasn't a big-time elite superstar for this team by any means. He was at the later part of his NHL career by the time he came to Nashville as an expansion team. But I put him at number 5 because he was still the first captain of this team. Kimmo Timonen, it's really hard to put him back at number 6 because he was such a great defenseman for this team. He was one of the pre-Shea Weber, Kimmo Timonen was the best defenseman this team ever had. So it really goes to show you that this team has been blessed with outstanding captains. Even Greg Johnson, the late Greg Johnson, who had a really, really unfortunate and sad death. But even Greg Johnson, I hate putting him at number 7 because he was a great player for this team in the early years. But you gotta rank these somehow. These are all great players and deserving captains of this franchise. But I put Greg Johnson at number 7. So those are your captains, and Roman Josi is going to be captain for a long time because he's not going anywhere, and he's given us no reason to not be captain. And he's going to be with this franchise for a long time. So he's going to be a
lot of people out there probably because there have been people who are relying on him, and I still see it occasionally saying that Josi should not, that he's too passive or whatever to wear the C.
Yeah, you do get that a lot.
Which the way I see it nowadays is look, we've seen a year of Barry Trotz and Andrew Brunette. We know that they are down to business. They don't care about anyone's feelings. They're kind of one of those guys. They don't care about anyone's feelings. If they saw something that they didn't like about Roman Josi, they would not be afraid to strip the captaincy from him. But they have not done that at all. There's no justification left at this point for me to say that Josi should not be captain.
He is a very quiet leader. He's not a heavy, vocal, crazy, every now and then you'll see Josi lose his cool.
And he's done more of that over the past few years.
He has.
More intense, kind of in your face. I remember several years ago, I watched a game where there was a call happened. He was absolutely giving it to the officials. I was like, wow, I've never seen that from him at all.
Yeah. But for the most part, he's a calm, cool, and collected type of captain. Very different than other captains you might see out there. But there's our list right there. Wanted to share that because of a NHL.com social media post showing us all the captains in our team's 25-year history going into year 26.
Crazy.
Yeah. All right, so let's tell you about our other sponsor. That is BetterHelp. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. And you know what? Our schedules are jam-packed right now. You got to take the kids to soccer practice. You got to deal with your big work project at work. You've got to find time for your own self to run errands. You got to go to the grocery store. You got to do all these things. It's so easy to lose your priorities of taking care of you, taking care of your mental health. That's what BetterHelp is. It's hard to make time for what makes us happy. Non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever in this crazy and unpredictable world that we live in. If you're thinking about therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's completely online. You do an online questionnaire to get matched up with an online therapist, and it's just an amazing thing. I mean, we all need help at certain times, and you know what? Even if you haven't ever gotten therapy, even if there's no trauma going on in your life, it is still so important to focus on you, and sometimes an online therapist is what can help you. So right now, Never skip therapy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/THPN today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/THPN. That is 10% off your first month. Amazing, amazing sponsor. We love that we have them aboard. And I can tell you personally that we live in scary times, and you got to focus on your well-being and your health, your personal well-being. All right, let's move along here, Max. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what's going on and why Cody Glass is possibly going to be a cap casualty. And a big reason is we're thinking about those two restricted free agents, Philip Tomasino and Juuso Parssinen. Answer me this right now, Max. Do you think we're overthinking it when it comes to worrying about how they're not signed yet? What is going on here? We keep seeing that the Preds have no more money to really spend. And you've got two pretty important future players to this team when it comes to Parssinen and Tomasino. Something's got to give. Are you freaking out over this, or do you think eventually it's going to happen? It's just right now it doesn't have to happen.
I think it's the truth somewhere kind of in the middle of what you just said. I wouldn't say I'm freaking out at this point. You know, it's still time. There's still time left, and things could happen. They're not going to be expensive, but I do agree something has to happen for those deals to happen. And like you said, the Preds are really, really tightly pressed against the cap. Something's got to give, and we've heard Barry Trotz say that he thinks he's going to make another. He can make another a move or two to clear cap space, and I think that's what it's going to have to happen. Is you're going to have to make a move to get rid of someone like Cody Glass or even Dante Fabro. Maybe they both end up going, and you create more money that way. But no, like I agree. You know, I think again, I don't think it's a huge thing to worry about, because there's time left, and you know, I think potentially Trotz seeing what he can get so he doesn't have to potentially lose those guys for absolutely nothing, and maybe see what, if any, return he can get for those guys. But again, I do think something has to happen on the cap dump floor for the Preds to be able to get back Parssinen and Tomasino.
Because you're figuring that for sure Parssinen is going to be in your starting lineup. I mean, he's slotted. He's projected to be in the starting lineup.
One of Tomasino or Parssinen is going to have to be there.
Yeah. So, and it's going to be a major letdown if you lose one of those players for some reason. Like, we still have a lot of high hopes for both of those players to be long-term contributors to the Nashville Predators. And that's no knock. Again, that's no knock on Cody Glass. We've already talked about it. It's just the way it goes, you know? And, I mean, who do you think has the higher ceiling at this point right now? Parssinen or Tomasino? And I think I know who you're going to go with. If I know you well and I've done enough episodes with you by now, I think you're going to go with Parssinen, right?
Well, that's a multifaceted question. I think ceiling.
I'm going straight ceiling.
Straight ceiling, I think, is Tomasino.
Really? Okay.
Straight ceiling. In terms of floor and what I think both players are going to become, I'm more confident that Parssinen can become a better NHL player than Tomasino.
Okay.
Going straight ceiling, because again, also you got to remember, Tomasino was a first round pick. Parssinen was a 7th round pick. That still does play a role in this too. So if we're going just completely pure ceiling, I think Tomasino, but his floor is way lower, I think.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer. I can't argue with that at all. And look, Parssinen still has a very high probability of being an effective center.
Yeah.
Whereas Tomasino is going to be a winger. And I think that
small to play center.
So I would argue that even though maybe the elite talent level is more with Tomasino, just the raw talent, but I think Parssinen has a much better chance if he seizes the opportunity to have long-term viability in the NHL as a center if he can prove it. And he's got such a big body. And
again, one of those players, you are not concerned with from a physical standpoint.
But, Tomasino's never given me a reason to think, oh, this guy's a bust. He can't make it. I think the problem with Tomasino has been what kind of similar to what has been problem for Glass is just finding that consistent ice time. When you're only getting 10 to 12 minutes of ice time, it's really hard to make put your stamp on the game. And Trotz says all the time, well, you don't want to put them in situations they're not ready for because that's going to damage their confidence and all this other stuff. But Tomasino in particular has been around long enough to where if you don't know if he's ready now, then when are you going to know?
Yeah, exactly. And again, like I think the thing I could use against
he's a 2019 draft pick, right. and he's been around for a little bit.
And again, like the thing I use against him, and I don't need that's a harsh way to say it. I don't want to like say, oh, this guy's a complete bum, but like the fact that he's struggled under two different coaching staffs who coach very different ways. And it's like, it's again, like I say, it's easy for us as the fans to look and watch these games and be like, we don't know what's happening with them. The coaches are just screwing up. But like, again, we're not in the locker room. We don't know. And there's something's got to be up where you look at a guy like Tomasino, you see he's playing well, having good games, but he still can't make it. What, again, there's got to be something deeper going on.
So here, I got it. I'm going to put it on the screen here from Puckpedia, the new go-to source for salary cap information. So I'm just looking at the forwards. So first, let's pull it up here. Preds projected cap space. You see it right there. Yeah. 595, 801.
Not enough cap to get Tomasino and Parssinen back.
Nope. And so let's scroll down here. Spencer Stastny, of course, was the last transaction to be made there, which was a big one. We wanted to get that over with. We wanted to get that out of the way. So you look at that. You see all these players who are signed. You see the big money being spent on Stamkos, of course, Forsberg, Marchessault, $5.5 million. O'Reilly's getting $4.5 million. Novak's at $3.5 million. Nyquist is $3.185. Look at Sissons. I still can't believe how long Sissons has been at that deal. Yeah. And then you just look at it. I mean, look at it. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that Cody Glass is the outlier at that $2.5 million. Yeah. He is the outsider looking in, fair or not. Because then you look at these other guys who are slotted in to be bottom six guys. Cole Smith's only making $1 million. Michael McCarron is only making $900K. That's a deal. I'm sorry. For what Michael McCarron does, $900K is a bargain.
Absolutely.
Mark Jankowski,
more than just on the ice. Like he's a big guy in the locker room too. Like Andrew Burnett literally called him like a big brother for the younger guys.
Yeah. Mark Jankowski, $800K.
Yeah.
Another bargain for what he brings to you. Luke Evangelista, still on a two-way deal, $797.5. So that there's where you see it. We'll scroll past the defenseman because it's not really. Of course, we know Dante Fabro, also $2.5 million.
I don't know how, maybe this is a harsh way to put it. I'm saying that a lot this episode, but, how do you not move Fabro again? He's going to be your seventh defenseman making that much money.
And he's going to be he's such an easy player to take on for another team because he's going to be a free agent.
Don't move him.
And then you scroll down here. Let's go by those buyout players. We don't even want to look at those guys. But non-roster forwards, and this is where you're going to see your RFA situation.
Not back to the forwards, at least this year at all.
13 non-roster forwards. But let's scroll back up, actually, because I went past them, I think. Yeah, so there's your two RFAs. That's what we're talking about right here. So, yeah, I scrolled right past them. So Tomasino and Parssinen are both RFAs. They're still not signed. So they've both graduated from their entry-level deals. And they're both 23. You got to make a decision at this point, and you got to figure it out.
They are both not arbitration eligible. That's another reason probably why it's dragging out. For Spencer Stastny, he was arbitration eligible. Tomasino,
good point.
Not.
Very good point. So something's got to give is what we're trying to get at.
Yes.
It might not. It doesn't have to necessarily happen right now. We got time to figure it out.
Well, this month, really. I mean, it could drag into September.
It could. It definitely could.
Yep.
So there you have it there. Let's get to some more business. We have a couple more things to get into. Players facing the most pressure. I also put that on Pred lines that you can read. This is just what I think is individual pressure on a team that is facing pressure in and of itself. The whole team's going to be facing pressure. Oh, we got Lindsay in here. Not a lot of comments tonight because we're not on X anymore. We really got to get that figured out, get back on X. But Lindsay says hi. Hello, friends from YouTube. Good to hear from you, Lindsay. Wanted to say hi back to you. All right, players facing the most pressure. I've got. I'm going to roll through my 5 here really quick, and we'll break it down. I got Stamkos at number 5. Basically, because he's got to prove to everyone that he was not reliant on just being on the Lightning all those years. Yeah. And, quite frankly, I don't think he has a lot to prove, but he's still facing pressure because he's going to be one of the most looked at players to open the season just based on that free agency and all the news on that. So that's why I got him on here. A lot of people are going to push back on me on this one, but I do have Forsberg at number 4 on my most pressure because he's the incumbent. We're in political season here. We're not going to talk politics, but he is, to use the political term, he is the incumbent superstar of this team along with Roman Josi. He is the guy. He has been the guy for a while. We've all wanted to put him in on that elite pedestal, and he just put up over 90 points. Can he do it again? He has to. He needs to. Forsberg cannot revert back to being an ordinarily decent player again. He's got to stay at that superstar level. Do you agree with me on that, Max?
Oh, absolutely. The thing, I personally didn't put him on the list because at least after this year and also the year he had in 2021-22, he's proven himself there for me. So I didn't put him there, of course, into my list. But no, I don't disagree with anything you're saying, though. Like, he has to continue to do really well. And he's on a very big contract.
Yeah. And, he's going to be looked at as a guy that fans are going to look to him and be like, all right, we got all these new guys playing, but how's Forsberg doing? He's still the superstar of this team that's been around for a long time. All right, number 3, I got Dante Fabro. We just talked about him a little bit.
That's one I was curious about.
I got him on there. He's facing pressure because when he's still going to get playing time if he's still on this team.
He's still on this team.
Well, there's a good chance he is still on this team. And he's going to be, as a 7th defenseman, there's a lot of people who have importance. He's getting overpaid to be a 7th defenseman, but 7th defensemen are still important because you do rotate guys in and out. So I do think there's a good chance that Fabro is going to get playing time, and he's going to have to. He's not going to only be playing, and I put this in my article, he's not going to only be playing for the Predators. He's going to be playing for his audition team, the team that might be interested in him out there. Yeah. So this is assuming that maybe he's not traded before the regular season starts, but he still might have 10 more games in a Predator sweater left in his career before he gets traded, and he's going to have to really show out. That was my thinking there.
I could definitely see that. The way I thought is, for a guy that's going to be so, kind of low in the depth chart, and a guy who may not even be on the team, it was kind of hard to justify.
But he's facing individual pressure because he's still playing for his career to go somewhere else.
My thought kind of was with guys, you'll see on my list, my thought was kind of guys who are going to be really critical players for this team, but I see where you're going with it.
Yeah, so maybe we thought about it a little differently. Number 2,
with these lists, like a lot of
hey, that's why they're fun though.
No,
exactly. It's how you interpret it.
Talk about when you're with Rich, a lot of times you'd have lists saying like, "What are you guys doing?" We all will take these lists differently.
Back in the day, Rich's list would never be like mine. It would be so funny. All right, I think we're both going to be in agreement with the last 2, I would hope. Number 2, Tommy Novak.
Yep, absolutely.
He might be number 1 on your list, maybe. But I got him number 2 for obvious.
I didn't rank mine necessarily. He's
okay.
Top 2. He's
very obvious reasons for Tommy Novak.
Yes.
He's got to prove he's ready to be a second line full time center, not like a plug and play center. No, full time.
Right.
And then number 1 for me is still UC Saros. He's the franchise goalie. He just got the big deal. Yep. It was such a pressing issue. We were just like beating ourselves over the head about it, waiting for him to get signed. Is he going to get signed? Is he going to get traded? What are we going to get out of him? Yada, yada, yada.
Traded, so he's going to have to back it up that he shouldn't have been.
And there's a lot of people who do not want to see Yaroslav Askarov traded. And so if Saros opens up the first half of the season dare I say, blowing a couple games, like not being sharp, getting the goal support, but he's still not getting the win because he gives up a couple goals here and there that aren't quality goals. That noise is going to get very, very loud. We know how this fan base gets. Yeah. And we know that this fan base, for better or worse, likes to look straight at the goaltender. They used to do the same thing to Pecorine. They did. I remember those years. Everyone loves Pecorine now. He's the savior. He's the hero of this franchise. People used to be very, very hard on Pecorine in those days, and they do the same thing to Saros. And so I'm sorry, he's got to be number one. No, he does.
He's absolutely on that list for me too. There's no way he cannot be.
Okay, so who are you taking off that I put on?
The only differences I had Stamkos on there, of course, the deal he signed. They're going to be a big player. I had Novak, obviously. I had Saros, obviously. I didn't have Forsberg and Fabro on there. I put Marchessault and Shea on there.
Oh, so you're going newcomers here. They got pressure.
Here, and not just that fact they're newcomers, but they signed big deals, especially the Shea deal. That's the one where people are looking at like, ooh, that could be an open. That's the one that definitely of the 3 deals signed scares me the most. Shea definitely has a lot to, and again, we know the reason why he's a fit in this team. And Trotz also said that, last year, the only offense that came from the back end was Yossi, and Shea's going to help that. So we understand why he's a fit here. But man, that 7 years, $7 million per year deal, that's a big one. And he's going to have a lot of pressure to live up to it. And if it doesn't work out, that's the one that could screw up, couldn't work out. But again, the theme kind of is there with all 3 of the new guys being on there. You were signed to a lot of money, and you're signed to like make this team a winning team. And if those 3 signings do not go well, then this team is not going to have the chance that they thought they could have and that they expect to have and they should have.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I totally get that one. All right. So I mean, like I said, like we both said, this entire team is going to be facing immense pressure, as they should be. And so there you have it with that. All right. So Max, are you ready for this what's your number game?
I am ready.
All right. So we're gonna start off easy.
Okay.
We're gonna start off easy, and then we're gonna get a little bit more difficult. First of all, how's your photogenic memory? Is it pretty good?
Pretty damn good, I gotta say.
Okay. Well, we're about to find out. I think this one's an easy one here. I'm starting off with an easy one.
Okay. I'm gonna get this one.
I'm just gonna put the guy's like photo on like. Obviously, I'm not gonna give you any.
Oh no.
Like, I'm not gonna make this easy on you, but this one is definitely during a time when you were watching the team.
Okay.
Let's put it on the screen here so you can react to it in live time. This is why you got to watch on YouTube, guys. If you're listening on the podcast platforms, you don't really see what's going on here. But I'm about to put a former Preds player, their image, on the screen for Max, and he's going to have to guess the number. It's called What's Your Number? All right, there he is.
That's RV, number 33, and he wore number 38. And he wore number 38 beforehand.
Oh, bonus points here! Max coming out hard here. Yeah. He gave the other
full name. It's not enough to say the nickname, but it was Victor Arvidsson, number 33 and number 38 before he was 33.
That's really good. Okay, you know what? Max came to play. All right, you want to give one to me? He can't put the image on there, but do you have any from me, or am I just sending them all to you?
Man, I didn't prepare to put them on the screen for you.
That's okay. If you want to pull your phone, no. I mean, like, you just throw random players at me if you want.
Oh, okay.
If you want to think about it for a second, I'll come up with another player here.
Okay.
Because I got a list of players.
I got to think here.
While you're doing that, I'm gonna find another player to text you. Okay, you got one. All right.
Erik Haula.
Erik Haula. Ooh, damn.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough one I threw at you.
Damn, you're coming out hard. I threw you a softball. Here you are, like, throwing heaters. No. Let me think about it. I really don't know. I'm gonna say I'm gonna be wrong on this one. God, he was just, his time here was so brief. 24.
It was 50. It was 56.
Wow, way off. Wow. How do you even remember that? All right.
It was pretty recent. It was pretty recent. I'll throw you another softer one here in a bit.
No, all right. Well, let me go with mine here real quick.
Okay.
And I'm giving you another easy one, but I already did the list, so I think you're going to get this one too. I underestimated you.
Okay.
Let's put it on the screen here. On the right there. Cal Yarncroke.
So that is Cal Yarncroke. He wore number 19.
Oh, wow. Okay. To not be beaten is Max Greenberg. All right. Cal, that was actually former beloved co-host Rich Howe, our friend.
Oh.
That was one of his favorite players was Cal Yarncroke. He was very, very sad.
I'll give you another one, kind of on, and you'll see the theme I'm going with here. James Neal.
Oh, James Neal was James Neal.
A little longer ago.
James Neal. What was his number? I'm gonna go 23. MJ.
18.
18. See, I suck at this. Yeah, see, I'm good at more recent numbers, but
I still got to throw you another recent one that you'll know. You've been
No, don't throw me softballs.
Okay.
If you want to bring it, then bring it.
Okay.
But I should have clearly come up with some harder names or some harder jerseys. Because these are I would have gotten these right, personally. I'm being dead. The two that I've thrown you, I would have gotten right.
Okay.
But you brought it. We were going head to head right now. You brought it, and I should have been more ready here. All right, I got a good one here. I think you're going to get this one too. But also, these are just great players. It's kind of reminding us of some of the great players we had.
It's PK Subban, number 76.
All right. Clearly, you have a good photogenic memory. Also, it's in the corner right there. It's kind of shuffled.
I did not even notice that.
No, I know you didn't. All right.
Let me think of one.
Oh, I'm gonna get a good one. I got a good one.
Okay.
I got a good one. While you think.
Okay.
Max is the number game champion, though. He is like the Tom Brady of Preds number game.
Trying to think here.
Okay, this one's gonna be funny though. All right, this was kind of a rough time for backup goalies. Let me make sure the number's not visible for you first. Oh yeah, I gotta move that out. There we go. Can't be giving. I don't need to make it any easier on you. You're already nailing this game. All right, David Riddick.
33.
I would not have gotten that. Good job, Max.
Thank you.
David. Big Save Dave.
Number 33.
I know Lindsay. That's Lindsay's favorite goalie, and David Riddick is a really outstanding individual. What he does off the ice, and he actually has really resurrected his career after leaving Nashville.
He really has established himself again, which is really good to see.
But sadly, what a lot of Predators fans remember is him running into his own goalpost.
Yeah, that was tough.
But Max, you're hard to beat here, man. I can't stump you. I think you're like 4 for 4 in this game right now, and I'm 0 for 2.
Trying to think of one that you. Here's one that's actually not too hard, but not too easy. What about Ellie Tolvanen?
Oh, he was 28.
Okay, there you go.
All right, redemption for me.
There you go.
Redemption. All right, you're not going to get this one.
Oh.
You're not going to get this one. If you get it's before you, and I've got to stump you at this point.
Oh, okay.
Hold on, I can't use that image because I got to stump you somehow at this point. All right, the number. I got to make sure you can't see the number. You might not even know.
I got one for you coming up, but I think you
might not even know who this guy is. Hold on. You'll get bonus points if you can even tell me who this guy is.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. I got to make sure you can't see the numbers. Okay. You'll know who it is because you can see it here, but
I'm trying not to see as much as I can. Let's Colin Wilson.
What number was he?
33.
You're unstoppable. You're a machine. You're a
Here's one for
machine.
you I think you might get. Nick Bonino.
Nick Bonino, he was number 13.
That is right.
And I loved his nickname. It was Bones.
Well, yep.
I mean, is that not one of the best nicknames ever? I mean, Nick Bonino played his role so well, and it was crazy how he came to the Predators. He played for the Penguins when as a role player, if you will, a depth player, when they beat the Predators in the Stanley Cup, and then that exact offseason he comes to the Predators. And during his time here, he played his role. He was a strong player for the Preds.
Absolutely. No, he did a lot of good things.
So I have not stumped Max on one of these. It is crazy. He is definitely.
Wilson was around the time I just started watching.
God, I got to think of one. I'm thinking right now. I got to come up with a really, really good one here. It's not going to be easy at all. You're just too good at this.
Think of another one for you. Hold on.
Okay, I got one more, and then we are. I'm just going to give up at that point. If I don't get you on this one, then I'm just going to give up. All right, you ready for this one?
Yep.
I don't think you are. Chris Mason.
That's Chris Mason, number 50.
50? Was he number 50?
Pretty sure. Wait, no. That was in St. Louis. He was number 30. 30.
Oh, and the perfect streak is over.
Tough on that one.
I wouldn't have gotten that one either, just so you know. So you're not alone.
He wore number 50 in St. Louis. That's what got me.
It doesn't matter. This is the Preds number game, Max. It's not the St. Louis Blues
right.
number game.
Here's one final one for you. What about Ryan Hartman?
Look at the old school mustard jerseys, though. Oh, Ryan Hartman. I got that one. Don't tell me how I remember this, but I really liked Ryan Hartman. Was he number 36?
You are too off. He was 38.
Oh,
you were close though.
I really liked Ryan Hartman. He had a very brief stint with the Preds, but he was a bulldog. He was one of those just grinders. All right, fun stuff. We will come back to this game at another time. But Max, you are a champion. You win that round. You wiped the floor with me on that one. I should have not thrown you so many easy ones, but I wasn't sure. But you didn't.
No, I would have prepared some more for you there.
I still threw some. I think I did throw some tough ones at you.
You definitely threw a lot that like most people besides me would not get. But yeah,
the David Riddick one, I was very impressed by that you got that one. I was very impressed that you got Colin Wilson right.
That was probably the one out of all. The Colin Wilson one was going to be the one that was like.
Oh, Lindsay puts one out there. I know this one. Martin Erat. I'm gonna say number 10. Yeah. All right. Awesome. All right. Max is a beast at the Preds. What's your number game? All right. We are going to finish it out and give the floor to Max. It's episode 241 of Catfish on Ice. And it is Titans time.
Yep.
A lot to talk about. I hear that they just signed a pretty big player, so Max is about to tell us about that. It's been a very heated training camp.
Yep.
So just kind of give everyone the rundown on what has happened in training camp. What have you learned so far about this team? And then also the player that they just signed, and then what you are wanting to see out of the preseason opener this weekend.
Yeah, so I'll go through a few things. I'm going to start with kind of training camp notes, and I'll go into the player that the Titans just signed. So I'm going to go back a few weeks ago on this episode. I talked about 5 things that were going to stand out, that I really wanted to see. Number 1, the right side of the offensive line was something I was looking at. And through the first 2 weeks, that one is definitely still up in the air. That's definitely one of the areas on this team I'm still worried about the most. It's been a lot of mixing and matching. I mentioned Sadiq Charles at right guard. They've been working with him mostly, it seems like. Nicholas Petit-Ferrer, he just came back from his injury. It looks like he's going to be starting. We don't know for sure, but he right now seems to be the front runner for the right tackle spot. The unofficial depth chart just came out today, and he's listed as the starter. I'll talk about that a little bit too here and there. But yeah, the right side of the offensive line absolutely still up in the air right now. I also mentioned another thing, the bottom of the receiver depth chart, particularly the battle between Kyle Phillips and newly drafted Jaquan Jackson. Both guys were slot receiver prototypes who are going to be given opportunities in the punt return game. Right now, it looks like Phillips has definitely had the better training camp, and he's been one of those players. So the years he's been in the Titans, he's done really well in training camp. Hasn't done the same way in the regular season, but mostly by means of injuries, and also he has had a lot of problems with muffing punts and the return game. But right now, he's been the one making the plays at training camp. He's actually been one of the guys who's made a lot of the plays. So right now, it looks like he's going to be the front runner. And you never know how much I feel like the Titans probably would give, all things equal, a little more. They'd probably like Jaquan Jackson a little more just because they drafted him recently. Phillips was 2 years ago under a different GM, but still right now, Phillips is the one who's been making the plays. I personally am a big Kyle Phillips fan, so I'd love to see him make the roster. But again, that's a bottom roster spot right there. Another thing I mentioned was Devondre Sweat. And let me tell you right now, he's one guy who has flipped the narrative since the beginning of training camp. Coming into training camp, there were a lot of questions. He hadn't had a great OTAs. He was injured for a lot of it, and we were worried about his conditioning, whether or not he could hold up. But he has done really, really, really well in the first 2 weeks of training camp. Particularly, he's had a lot of good reps against Lloyd Cushenberry, who's an established NFL center, and that right there has given me more hope around Devondre Sweat. Again, he hasn't played a game yet. But you can't punish a guy for doing a bad job, and he's done a really good job at training camp so far. The linebackers, that was another area of the team that was concerning potentially. One guy who's turned a lot of heads in training camp so far, Kenneth Murray. When he was signed in the offseason, a lot of people were looking at, like, what are the Titans doing? This is a guy who was really athletic, but hadn't been able to put it together on the field. But right now in training camp, he's done a lot of really good things. Coaches have great things to say about him. He, too, has said differences between when he played on the Chargers versus the Titans. The Titans, and without going too far into it, he's basically been saying the Titans have allowed him to play a lot more free, kind of letting him play into his natural skill set, which is a lot of, blitzes and just playing really fast. And that's what Kenneth Murray really is. So you never know. Maybe he was in the wrong scheme again. You don't really know until he's played a game, but that's also big thing that has gone well so far in training camp, along with the other linebackers. Jack Gibbons, he looks like he's going to reclaim his starting spot. Aside from that, without going to, of course, you can't really judge the unofficial depth chart, especially the first one right away. But if there's one area that was a little alarming, it's that rookie fourth rounder Cedric Gray was not listed till way back. I was pretty surprised to see that. Hopefully that changes. I mean, last year, Tyjae Spears was ranked as the number 3 running back on the depth chart. Obviously, that turned out to not be the case at all. James Williams was also ranked way back there. He's also, too, has had a good training camp. People have talked about him. So, again, hard to put too much stock into that. But that was one area. If I had to pick one area of the unofficial depth chart that I was a little that kind of was an eye-opener, that was it.
So,
yep.
I want to ask you something really quick.
Yep.
What are we expecting to see in the first preseason game from Will Levis? I know he's the incumbent starter, but he's still such a young quarterback. Are they wanting to get him a lot of reps, or are they wanting to treat him like a normal first-string quarterback where you don't play a lot in the preseason?
Brian Callahan has said he wants his starters to play a good bit, and especially more than Vrabel did. So I think
interesting.
You're going to let everyone, I think, play a good bit in this preseason. And Levis, for what it's worth, has in the past week, he's actually really started turning on in training camp, and he's had a lot of really deep passes. The other day, he had a great deep pass that was right on the money to Nick Westbrook-Akine. So
nice.
Right now,
and Malik Willis is slotted as number 2, correct?
No, it should be Mason Rudolph.
I totally forgot that they got Mason Rudolph.
All 3 quarterbacks have done well at training camp so far, but it looks like it should be Levis as fourth number 1, and then Mason Rudolph number 2. But guys have done well so far.
I entirely forgot about Mason Rudolph. So does that mean that Malik Willis will likely be cut at some point?
Well,
or are they going to carry 3 quarterbacks?
I don't know. And here's the thing: I don't think, to my knowledge, it's still the same. But I remember there was a rule last year where teams can carry an extra quarterback without counting against their 53-man roster.
Okay.
So that could happen to Malik Willis.
I
don't know. Maybe, just maybe, he could play himself into a trade. That's probably a pretty low chance. It wouldn't be anything but like a 5th rounder.
Yeah.
But that's also a non-zero chance. As far as other notes, before I go into like the fifth thing I wanted to say on my list, a few more notes I want to see here. If I said, so far, one of the most impressive rookies so far has been Jarvis Brownlee Jr., cornerback. He's been very, very sticky, really, really aggressive. He's plays with the kind of aggressiveness that Denard Wilson wants out of his cornerbacks. He's a guy who I think could be, I mean, of course he's a rookie, but he's a guy I'm really excited about having seen so far. And of course, like I said, Devondre Sweat is doing really well. Josh Wiley has been a standout at tight end so far. He might usurp Chigo Okonkwo for his spot. So that could
and has Jeffrey Simmons calmed down from his feud with Buck Rising?
I gotta say, I gotta hand it to Big Jeff for the way he responded to it. He went in there the next day. He pretty much owned it. He was like, guys,
I saw that. Yeah,
it was not me. It won't happen again. Like
that kind of went viral. I mean,
no, it really did.
Like it was weird. Like because Buck Rising, he's like the big. I would argue he's the biggest media voice in Nashville sports radio right now. He's got to be. And I mean, that was testy. Yeah. And I thought Buck Rising handled himself completely professionally.
I thought he did too.
He was just asking the questions. He even gave Jeffrey Simmons he's like, look, you can sit down and we'll talk. Like he said he was,
there was them talking, and Buck said, had a great conversation the next day, and
I thought both parties handled it well. It happens, guys get heated. I mean, Jeffrey Simmons is one of the top players of this team in terms of a young team. He's got to be the leader, and he's still a young player in his own right, really. But I thought both parties, once the dust settled, handled it well. Things get testy. I love it. I want to see guys pissed off in training camp. I don't want to see like really nasty brawls where guys are just like, but yeah. I've always, football practice, training camp, those dog days of summer, you want guys getting ticked off. You want guys being passionate and aggressive. You don't want to necessarily see them lashing out at the media like that. That's a bad look. But I really do appreciate how he looked himself in the mirror and owned up to it. That was cool.
And to preface, before I go on to what I was going to say next, but to preface a little bit what happened for those who may not know. So kind of the reason that whole thing started was, in practice last Tuesday, which was the first day they put on pads, there was a fight. Mainly it started, I think, between Jeffrey Simmons, of course, and J.C. Latham. And, of course, and it kind of got sent down a rabbit hole where the whole team got involved. Brian Callahan was not happy. He gave it to the team about it. He said in the press conference later, he's like, look, I'm not going to throw anyone out right now. It's the first day of pads, but he's like, look, fighting is not in the spirit of the game. It gets you kicked out of games. We don't want it happening again. So I thought Brian Callahan handled it really well. But essentially what really set off Jeffrey Simmons was Buck Rising. He had tweeted something afterwards saying that there was a fight that refs were saying that if that happened in a game, Jeffrey Simmons would have been tossed, and he needed to really calm down and lock in. And Jeff
That's fair.
Didn't take that well, and he went up to Buck Rising and started calling him a name or two I can't really say on here.
Yeah, that's a fair statement, though.
Yeah, but again, like I say, they both sides made up. They handled it really well, and right now it's a non-issue. So things will happen again. So either way, but the next thing we want to get to here is the safety position, because that was also one of those areas that was looking really grim and really thin.
I mean, what area doesn't look grim?
Yes, but that leads us into the signing yesterday. The Titans signed Quandre Diggs, safety from the Seattle Seahawks, a guy who's a free safety. Titans needed another coverage safety really badly alongside Amani Hooker. You got that in Quandre Diggs here. He hasn't missed a game in several years.
Wow.
He is 31, and you shouldn't expect him to be the same, shutdown safety he was back in years prior, but he absolutely improves the depth in that room. Of course, now you got your two coverage safeties and Diggs and Amani Hooker. And now when you have a guy like Jamal Adams, he can be used as a pure blitzer. Same kind of thing with Elijah Molden. Two guys are going to be definitely more in the box. So you definitely don't have a star there at this point, but you definitely have depth there now. And with how the safety position is trending in today's day and age, you honestly can get away with that. And of course, there's a lot of other holes in the Titans team. And of course, this team is not going to be anything big this year as far as a contender, but
it's a work in progress is what I would call it.
Yeah, exactly. And again, you got now you have at least 2 clear starters in safety. And again, you're not asking Jamal Adams to be a covered safety anymore, which it's proven he can't do. But again, now you have your answers there. So that was a really good thing to happen, signing Quandre Diggs. Aside from that, on a kind of the most concerning thing so far, you have 2 injuries. One to Chidobe Awuzie. He has a calf injury, and Brian Callahan spoke around that, saying they're not going to rest him at this point. They don't really know when he's coming back. They expect it to be before the start of the season, of course, but they're letting that one ride out. But the most recent one, the one people are going to be concerned about, DeAndre Hopkins strained his knee last week, and it's a 4 to 6 week injury. Could be a lot worse for sure. But that's a guy who's going to be out. His status for week 1 is going to be in jeopardy at this point. But honestly, I'm not super worried about it happening to Hopkins. He's one of those guys, again, he's older, but he's one of those guys, his game is not built around like explosive playmaking and speed. He can make explosive plays, but a lot of his game is route running intelligence and his hands, really moving the chains and doing those things. And he's also one of those guys who's known as a guy who doesn't have to like practice a ton, and he can go into. He's one of those guys who's known as a gamer, and so I think he'll be able to come back and do well. But in the meantime, this presents an opportunity for Treylon Burks to really prove himself again, and he's running out of chances. But if he is this one, that'd be a good thing.
All right, awesome. So we are caught up on what the Titans are doing.
Yep.
Preseason is starting. Who do they play this week? The Bears?
The 49ers. And
49ers.
I'll be there.
They play the Bears to open the regular season.
Play the Bears to open the regular season. That's not till September.
Yeah. Yes. But, all right, so the 49ers for preseason. All right, so good stuff there. All right, we're going to close this episode out with I'm going to get Max.
Uh-oh.
If he gets this one, then he's cheating. We're going to end we're going to get the What's Your Number Preds game, a Catfish on Ice podcast legend. Where's Rich Howe when we need him? Because he would know this. He would know this. You're not even ready for it. You are not ready for it, Max.
I think I know who this is.
Name that guy's jersey.
Was it number 55?
For the Preds?
Yeah.
I think he played one game for this team. I don't know. Let's look it up and find out. Dude, if you get this, then I'm buying you a Lucas Spiza jersey for Christmas.
Oh, my God.
Oh! He did. He wore number 55.
No way. Oh, my God, he did.
Max is getting a Lucas Spiza jersey. Lucas Spiza played in one game for the Nashville Predators in 2020-21. He played in 12 minutes of action. He did have 3 hits in that game, and then we never saw him again.
Rich would be so proud of me right now.
He went to Rich's basement, and he still lives in Rich's basement. He plays Xbox all day and eats Cheetos. That's Lucas Spiza right there, and Max just nailed it. He is the Hall of Famer of Preds. What's your number? Rich Howe is somewhere in Kentucky right now. Very, very happy with that answer. Lucas Spiza is the GOAT of the Catfish and Ice podcast. People right now who just started listening to the show, they're so confused right now. You have to go back and listen to like the first 100 episodes to really know when the Lucas Spiza inside joke was born. But Max, you cannot be beaten. I submit to you. All right. It's been a really fun episode. We are reaching the 2-hour mark. We're going to bow out tonight. It's been episode 241 of Catfish and Ice, brought to you by BetterHelp and DraftKings with our promo codes THPN. You can catch us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all your podcast platforms. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Thank you for watching. Comment on the show. Like us on Facebook. All the social media apps. It helps out a ton. We've really loved it, and we're getting closer and closer to the hockey season. Until then, Max, take care, man.
You too.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you soon. Until then, this has been Catfish and Ice on the Hockey Podcast Network.
See you guys later.